people of Reddit who thought screw this and quit your job on the spot. How did you get to that point? And how did it work out for you? I was in university working at Pizza Hut. The assistant manager was an asshole that always was too touchy with the girls working there. I started dating one of those girls. He was still touchy, so we had a talk. After that, he hated me and tried to screw me over on scheduling a lot. So I always had to get the manager to fix the schedules. Skip forward like 6 months, and I was the next person to get off. But he was keeping me for way longer than he should. I had friends who were going to see Spirited Away in a theater about an hour and a half away. Only chance I had to go. Probably. I was just like, can I go? No. Okay. I quit. I'll find another minimum wage job tomorrow. Drop apron. Leave. Not so exciting. Boss gave me a $500 commission on a $478k real estate deal I facilitated. Moved to Tampa. Tripled my salary. Lived happily ever after. I had a primary job that gave me decent hours. But I wanted more for the summer, so I sought out a second job. I landed a spot as a hostess at a chain restaurant. A day into that job, my mother goes to the hospital and is diagnosed with a terminal illness. Naturally, it wrecks me. I was a teenager and already had a lot to deal with, as a teenager would, at the time. I learned this about halfway through my shift. The supervisor pulls me aside and comments on my attitude. He says I'm not smiling much, that I seem down, etc. I was honest and told him about my mom. I told him I was trying my best. Then he tells me, rudely, your job is important and you need to be focusing on that now. Your mom can wait. Apostrophe. I left on the spot. Didn't quit the job, but I walked off a site once. I was asked to do a software update for some bespoke software by a senior engineer. He handed me the disk. Yes, a floppy disk. It was a long time ago. I ran the update, and I thought all was well, until the end user started running against serious problems that would cost the company a lot of money if not resolved. Basically they needed to revert the update. Senior engineer pinned it on me. Did you change control it? Did you back it up? Did you read the EULA which states it has this problem? I was a junior tech at the time, and basically aside from password resets, checking cables and fixing printers, we really didn't have any more responsibilities than that. This idiot basically tried to pin his mistakes on me because he thought I was an easy target. So I walked off site. I went back the next day and the director was nothing short of nice and apologetic to me. I think the senior guy got his bollocking. Worked at a bar a few months ago. The job was through an agency that found work for people with disabilities. I wanted any hospitality or retail work because that's all I had experience in. They found a little bar/snooker hall for me. I met with the guy who owns the place and did a 2-hour work trial. He was happy with me and I started properly the following Wednesday. Everything went really well on my first day as I learned how to use a register and pull pints. I really enjoyed it. The next day I met this guy's mother. It was a family owned business and I worked with her in the kitchen helping her with the food and she was teaching me how to do things and it was only my second day and she was really nice and told me that eventually I'll get the hang of it. But the next day, it was like she completely turned on me. She was yelling at me, constantly telling me that I was doing everything wrong, even though I was doing it exactly like she showed me. Told me how useless and stupid I was. I wasn't allowed to make mistakes, which, when you're learning new things you do make mistakes, and it was only my second time on the register. I could hear her talking about me to other customers about the way I was doing things and they were laughing about it. I tried so hard to stop myself from crying, but couldn't help it. I went to the bathroom and just let it all out and I could feel myself shaking. I walked home that night. Took me over an hour, but it was just so I could cry. The next day, nothing had changed. Still yelling at me, calling me stupid, and I made a huge mistake, but instead of taking me to one side, she decided to embarrass and humiliate me in front of the customer, calling me thick and useless. That was when I couldn't take it anymore and grabbed my coat and left. I'd been bullied in school and it just brought back horrible memories. That customer stopped me on the way out and asked if I was okay. The agency wanted me to go back, but I couldn't do it. I so desperately wanted to do my best Walter White impression on the way out. Fuck you. And your eyebrows. I was working at a call center. It took 4 months of people yelling and complaining in my ear to realize that I wasn't the type of person that can do that job. At that point I also realized that I'm not the type of person that can sit on my ass in front of a computer for 8 hours a day. I also realized that I don't like helping people. Warehouse work is what I'm content with at the moment. I've posted about this before, but I worked at Tim Hortons for about a month before I couldn't stand it anymore. I was given zero training. I showed up on my first day and was put immediately behind a register that I had never seen and couldn't use. To ring up items I didn't know how to calculate into the register. I had to start at 6 AM. So I handled the morning rush, basically winging it while getting yelled at by impatient customers and irate coworkers for messing up certain specific orders, like forgetting to add that a bajol needed toasted or extra cream cheese. I wasn't told how to make drinks, so when someone would ask for, say, a cafe mocha, I didn't know that it was equal parts hot chocolate and coffee with whipped cream and chocolate drizzle. I ended up giving someone a coffee with a mocha flavor shot, which I was yelled at for. None of my coworkers would talk to me long enough to answer my questions. The defining instance of my employment there, and the start of why I left, was the time a guy screamed at me and made me cry. I'd been yelled at a lot, but this guy scared me. For reference, I was just barely 18 and looked like I was 13. Was very shy, and I stand at about 5 feet 2 on a big hair day. This 30-something, 6-foot man was leaned over the counter, screaming inches from my face, calling me a stupid bitch and ducking moron because the cook put cheese on his sandwich. I don't cry, but for whatever reason, I just couldn't take it. I had to ring up his new order with blurry, watery eyes and hands that were shaking so badly I could barely push the buttons. Everyone heard him yelling, but no one, not even our manager, stepped in to help, knowing damn well I was new and untrained. They just let him scream at me for several minutes. I'd worked there about a week and a half at this point. Eventually a couple weeks passed, and I found myself lying in bed before work, miserable, wishing that I was dead, just so I wouldn't have to go back there. I dreaded going in so much that I was having a hard time sleeping and eating. One morning I went out to my car, and I just couldn't bring myself to start it. I sat there for a minute, then got out and went back to bed. I never actually quit. I just stopped showing up. I hated that ducking job. It was the worst one I've ever had. And I used to work in a family business. Man. So that's saying something. TL. Doctor. Worked at Tim Hortons. Was untrained and yelled at daily. So I just stopped going. I had been working at the same dollar store for 5 years. Started as a cashier. Got offered an assistant manager position and took it quite happily. I was very proud of myself, as stupid and cheesy as that may sound. I know it was just an assistant manager position at a lousy dollar store, but I have bipolar disorder and a social anxiety/panic disorder, so something like that was big for me. I never missed work. I always took extra hours when they asked. I covered shifts. The district manager at the time would praise my work ethic. The problem I had was with the store manager. I got along quite well with the other assistants and we actually worked better as a team while the store manager wasn't there. I want to try to keep this as short as I can, but I will tell you about her. She is one of the meanest people I have ever met. She was 325 pounds, about 5 feet 10, and constantly had this vaginal smell about her every day at work. She lied. She made things up to get attention. If we were all having a conversation, she would find a way to one-up us. She never answered her phone when there was an emergency at work. She never did any work but paperwork. But anyway, somehow this lady actually got offered a corporate job. So she was leaving us. Yay. Little did I know that the district manager had discussed with her making me the new store manager. So I took the job. It was the worst decision I ever made. I did pretty good for about 3 months as the new manager, but then my employees started getting lazy and taking advantage of me. They called me at home every single day. I only got 1 day off a week, but to me it never felt like a day off. They called me over the stupidest crap. I worked anywhere from 65 to 80 hours a week doing 14 to 16 hour shifts. Meanwhile, the ex-store manager would sneak in and behind my back tell my cashiers and assistants what to do, and they would listen to her. Even though she didn't work there anymore. I stopped eating, and my hair started to fall out. I got very ill, but I kept working. About 5 months in, things started to get better. I had a talk with my team and we all spoke about what we wanted out of the job. We started doing really well for ourselves, and our sales went way up. We cleaned the store up really nice, and always got compliments. I began to think, we are actually doing okay. I can do this. I got back to about 60 hours a week and my team tried their best not to call me on my one day off. Things were going to be okay, but then I got a phone call. It was the ex-store manager. She said she was coming back. The corporate job wasn't working, they weren't training her properly. Then she told me that her and the DM had made a contract stating if she didn't like the new job she could always come back, but I could still be her assistant. What a slap in the face. No one told me this. I wanted to say so many things to her but I didn't. I failed. A month goes by and she comes back. I was making really good money, so I was completely bummed. The whole team is bummed. No one liked her. Everyone is miserable. One assistant manager quit because she didn't want to be there with her. So now there was only 2 of us assistants. So I end up back as assistant having to close a store alone many nights because the cashiers started calling out because they hated her. So when the other assistant wouldn't cover, the store manager is supposed to, she never did. She either never answered the phone or told me to suck it up, I would be fine. Closing a store by yourself is a big company no-no. Anyway, this goes on and on. I feel like I'm going crazy. She takes 2 days off a week and is out every night by 4 PM. I look at her hours and WTF, she only does 50 a week. I'm angry. I'm exhausted. And then done to on Christmas. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. 2 days before Christmas I come in for my shift and I see the other assistant trying to flag me down and warn me she is on the warpath because we didn't get to the freight the night before. Mind you, it's Christmas time and we were very short staffed. I nod at him and I see the manager coming up from the back and I smile and go to say hi and she screams at me, "Why the fuck are there still U-boats back there? What the duck were you doing last night?" There were people in the store and she yells like this. The other assistant has this horrified look on his face and he is just standing there with his mouth open. I look at him and then back at her, then at him and back to her. Suddenly I get this ringing in my ears I have never had before and my whole body started to shake and I slammed my fist down on the counter and just yelled no. And then something snapped in me and I kept saying it over and over, no, and I'm hitting this counter with all my might and I got a funny coppery taste in my mouth. I was violently shaking and usually I cry when I'm upset, but something else took over and I told her I was done. I looked at her and said I'm ducking done. I quit. I took my assistant keys from my pocket and tried handing them to her, but she wouldn't take them. She was just staring at me with wide eyes and I could see she was starting to shake too. I got sick pleasure from that, so I threw them. Exclamation mark. I still get goosebumps thinking about it. She didn't say anything. I walked out and never looked back. The best part, the other assistant quit the day after me, so she had to deal with all the Christmas crowds alone. Sorry this got so long. I get really emotional when I think back on this. A part of me still feels ashamed for quitting. I could have ended up in perhaps a store of my own if I hadn't let my emotions get the better of me, but that was a dark time for me. I thought about killing myself when I worked there. I felt total hopelessness and despair. I only got about 3 hours of sleep a night. My husband actually told me he was proud that I walked out. He said not a lot of people would have. I just couldn't take it and I snapped. I think a person's physical and mental state is more important than a lousy job. New chef took over at a cafe I worked at as a jack of all trades. Started as a steward and started doing barista and chef work on the side. Since I was good at it and learned quick, was pretty much wearing every hat there. New chef comes in, starts piling on steward duties I'd never had before and changed our entire routine around when it was working well for us. Now I was scrubbing the freezers down every day when they were kept clean as was. Only he dirtied the shit out of them every day more than ever before with our old chef. He started making more dishes than possible when before we had few usually. And worst of all, he made us recycle chocolate from our enrobing machine belt and scrub and clean it every night to get the most shavings possible when before we'd just dismantle it and house it down and melt away chocolate down the drain. He gave me 4 hours of extra busy work to save $5 a batch. Meanwhile I'd been probably saving them $50 a day working 3 jobs there. Baking, prepping, serving drinks, and splitting the fob barista work with one girl. So we had 2 baristas a day, and now he had to go and hire a second barista because you needed to really for the crowds, and I'd been doing the job just fine. And in the downtime, could do my other work and help prep and bake as well. The new girl barista he hired did nothing but text on her phone all day, barely helped clean, and got paid $2 more an hour than I did, plus tips, which I wasn't allowed to split anymore with the first girl like we'd been doing. So one day, when he came in bitching about sales and performance and mess, I told him he's a messy pose. Things were fine before him, and he's going to run this place into the ground. Place closed 3 months later. They never found a new steward, and the place was a shithole without me. Baristas both quit, and the guy had to work the 3 jobs on his own with the first chef who quit soon after as well. I warned him. I tried to play nice and give him my opinion on how to run things when he first came and help him out, and he told me off. Been in the business 15 years. WTF do you know? Apparently how to run this cafe in my city with my friends and my customers. You know it all ass. He changed the menu, discontinued certain recipes, and took some things off the menu people loved because it wasn't fancy enough for his vision. Dumbass. Moved his entire family across the globe to manage this cafe and turn it into a patisserie and become a famous American baker, and he ended up moving his whole family right back. A few years ago, my family found out that my grandma's lung cancer had advanced significantly and wasn't responding to any treatment. Her doctors told us that if we wanted to see her, it should probably be that very weekend. My parents told me to ask for the weekend off and assured me that it wouldn't be a problem. What kind of heartless person would refuse that kind of request? Well, my manager did. She told me that my vacation should have been planned better. I asked her if she'd heard me correctly and reminded her that I was talking about my dying grandmother. She clarified that she understood perfectly, but really needed me to work, and that unplanned vacations were unacceptable. I told her to go duck herself, walked out on the spot, and went to go see my grandma. She died next Wednesday. Please subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.